All right, we're going to talk about test tips and tricks for repeated games. It's a myth among students that professors like to take off points in exams. It's not true. A perfect test is very fast to grade, plus it makes the instructor feel like they've done a great job as a teacher. So we're going to go over the most common things the students miss on these questions so that you don't miss them. So without further ado, here are the three main things to make sure you're paying attention to whenever you're answering a repeated games question. Tip number one, is it greater than or equal to? Okay, this is a standard exam question. We're asking, when is it a Nash equilibrium for the players to cooperate? And so the question is always, how high must delta be in order for cooperation to be a Nash equilibrium? So the first place I always look is right here. Is written greater than or equal to. Now, I don't want you to memorize, is it greater than or equal to? And the reason why is on a test, when you're under stress, you're going to blank and you're not going to be able to remember, or at least not be confident. But what I want you to do is know that you have to pause. You have to pause for 2 or 3 seconds here and force yourself to think, is this greater than or equal to? Now, you just have to remember the definition of a Nash equilibrium. We're asking, when is it an equilibrium for them to cooperate? And so it's an equilibrium so long as they don't have an incentive to deviate. And so long as cooperation gives at least as high of a payoff as cheating, they won't have a reason to cheat. So it's a Nash equilibrium so long as payoff from cooperation is greater than or equal to the payoff from cheating. Tip number 2, delta has to be between 0 and 1. Now, the second biggest mistake people make is just an algebraic mistake. That's not that big of a deal. But here we've done some algebra, and we found that delta is less than or equal to minus 1/7. This is going to make my head explode. Okay, I'm sitting there, I'm grading lots of exams, I'm getting a little testy, and next thing you know, somebody has written that delta has to be less than or equal to minus 1/7. Delta is a discount factor. Delta has to be between 0 and 1. So it's okay to make algebraic mistakes, but it is not okay to say that delta is going to be less than or equal to minus 1/7. That makes no sense. So we've done this, we've made an algebraic mistake, but now we catch ourselves because we know that this doesn't make any sense. And so here we look, okay, I go back and look, this was my algebraic mistake. I'm able to catch myself, do it the correct way. The tip number 2 is make absolutely sure your delta is between 0 and 1. Tip number 3, you found 2 different discount factors. Is it the bigger of these or the smaller of these? Now, the third trick is by far the most important. Every single time I ask a question like this, I'll have a different discount factor for player 1 and for player 2. And the reason is I want you to be able to see if you know it's whether or not it's the smaller of these 2 values or the larger of these 2 values. So the third tip is to pay extra special care. Take an extra 20 seconds to make sure you have this right. Is it the larger or the smaller? Don't memorize this. And the reason why you don't want to memorize it is on a test under stress. You're gonna have a real hard time being confident of, is this the larger or the smaller? I highly recommend you make a little chart like the following. Okay, I've just written down the values of 2 different deltas, and I'm trying to figure out when is it that both players will cooperate. All right, well, so delta 1 greater than or equal to 1/3. So just repeat in words what you found. You found that 1 will cooperate so long as delta is greater than or equal to 1/3. So let's write down that. And it's the same for 2. We found that 2 will cooperate so long as delta is greater than 1/2. A Nash equilibrium is when they're both cooperating. And now I can see the only place where they're both cooperating is as long as delta is greater than or equal to 1/2. So it turns out to be the maximum of these 2. But again, I don't want you memorizing it. Just take the extra 20 seconds to write out this chart and you'll get it right.